Personalized learning. Through strategic partnerships, CALI will lead the charge in creating an inclusive and accessible legal education landscape. Harnessing the power of data analytics, CALI empowers students with tailored recommendations and targeted feedback.
Can we do that now?
Discuss.
Propelling their legal prowess.
Yeah, the word prowess has to be, oh, there it is. I knew the word prowess would be in there. You're right.
It didn't say anything about A to J.
Yeah, it's
so
pretty,
you should
it's pretty
change
male, isn't it? It should be.
You said bombastic, it's pretty male.
Women can blow things
That's
up
very
too.
sexist,
Yeah.
Dan.
I'm just,
He's not wrong, though.
Where was that one?
I didn't
How
say
do
he
you
was
make a
wrong. I
Molotov
just said it was
cocktail
sexist.
in 30 minutes. Let me open that.
That's good to be a bombastic female.
Yeah.
I wonder if that would even work.
Turn off caps lock.
Yeah, no woman would say like
Okay, so what? Same thing. But more, oops, butter.
keep
Yeah,
that.
that's
See what
good.
drops
More
into the wrong
feminism?
mode.
Put more feminism.
This is probably getting on the edge of what ChatGPT.
People really wouldn't do this.
Feminist
Just
legal
drop-
education.
Just drop women in there.
Yeah, I mean, it didn't help anything.
That's fun, it is funny.
Oh,
Feminist in power.
all right, that's enough fun.
Recording is in progress.
It is in progress, so that's out over streaming out. Yeah, we
Hi,
got,
folks, out there in Zoom land.
oh, wow.
We'll be with you in a second. There we are. See, 1 second. Oh, God, the future.
He's sharing in PowerPoint.
What a scary crowd. Hi, my name is John Mayer. I'm the Executive Director of CALI, the Center for Computer Assisted Legal Instruction. The reason for that scary crowd comment is I've got current board members, ex-board members, staff, and not many friends I see in the audience. I traditionally, in the last few years, I've like grabbed a session at the end of the conference, not so much to talk about what CALI is actually planning on doing, maybe what we're thinking of doing, some sort of backburnered ideas or projects, but also to get feedback on how well or not you experience the conference and/or CALI products and content. And so this is an opportunity for everyone in this room and online to give me and us feedback about what we should be doing, right? But I will talk a little bit and give some context so you have some things to hook your praise and criticisms on. All right, any good talk about the future, should have some memes. It's difficult to make predictions, especially about the future. Mr. Captain Obvious says this. The better one is Abe Lincoln, of course. The best way to predict the future is to create it, which is exactly what we're trying to do with CALI. And I've interspersed in this presentation a whole bunch of funny images about AI misinterpreting images. This one is called Shar-Pei or croissant. And if you look at it a while, you can't tell which ones are the dogs and which ones are the croissants, which is, I think, cute and funny at the same time. They'll pop up occasionally. Don't be surprised. All right, my agenda. You'll see. But it starts with the legal education turmoil and beyond the JD. Let me just jump right in on that sort of stuff. I actually had to look up a word. I started by calling this the legal education shitstorm. I went to calling it the cataclysm or the apocalypse. And I thought that's too dire. I thought about calling it big change or something. It's turmoil. I believe legal ed is in a state of disturbance and confusion or uncertainty around a whole bunch of issues. And since we live and work and our membership is law schools, that makes it a place of turmoil for us as well, all right? Our law school is going to get smaller, or is the redistribution of students at least going to move around? Are the big going to get bigger, the small get smaller? I base this partially on, this is just one article, but the Fortune article says the labor shortage is pushing American colleges into crisis. There's been a 9% decrease in the last 3 years of people choosing to go into undergrad. Of course, that dip is going to come 3 years later, or at the same time it is hitting starting to hit law schools, where we'll see the numbers that were almost as bad as 2012. Is it 2012 when we had the big dip? I can't remember. It wasn't only in the recent future. So that's, and it's not that fewer students, it's not like the teaching changes much. It's just that there's less money flying around for things that schools want to do. It's a revenue problem, right? We just came out of a pandemic. It's in our rearview mirror, or is it? I think the pandemic parts, some of it are, but the effect on our society and on our way of thinking has not yet been fully processed by us. One aspect of that is that the distance ed, this was a conference theme 2 years ago, distance ed is here to stay. It's not, the ABA just adjusted their thing so that now 50% of your classes, I'm gonna get it wrong, 50%, it was 1/3, now 50% of your classes can be taken entirely online. And I think they got rid of the restriction on the 1L courses as well. And they did this, from what I read in the article, they did this because they were getting too many requests for exceptions for small changes that schools wanted to do with distance programs. And they figured, well, we'll just expand it for everybody, and maybe that will, the perimeter of that will encompass a lot of these requests for acceptance. Because they have to go through a long, complicated process to do it. Acceptance is not the word, what? Variance, that's the word, a variance. I suspect that that's not gonna, that change is not over yet either. Labradoodle or fried chicken? I like that one. I can hear the crunch. This one's a little easy. You just look for the eyes. Usually your fried chicken doesn't have eyes, right? All right, so beyond the JD, and this is still under the turmoil section, that law is not just for lawyers. Is John Garrett in the room? No, but he brought it home to me when I was sitting with him at lunch, and he said that when he was the dean at Nova a few years back, he went and he sort of grabbed up all the legal education that was happening around the university and made sure that it was initiated or had some aspect of it coming out of the law school. And what it did was it gave him, I hope I'm not quoting him out of place, but probably not. It gave him some power within the university because now he had undergrads. He wasn't just one of those, grad schools. He was an undergrad program. And what I guess he means by this, because the conversation didn't get too much deeper, was, he's got people in the law school that are now involved with the undergraduate criminal justice or the Masters of Public Administration, or maybe even in the MBA programs where that touches on law. I don't know about paralegal programs; those tend to be mostly in community colleges. But of course, almost every law school I know is trying to launch LLMs and not large language models. But what does LLM stand for these days?
You're thinking Masters of Legal Studies, MLSs. LLMs are advanced degrees if you already have a JD degree.
Yeah, I should have had you proofread this. Right, I'm thinking of Masters in Law sort of programs, and especially, and this ties into the distance learning, the foreign ones, right? Giving foreign lawyers American law experience so that business can be done across.
That is an LLM.
And that's a moneymaker, I know, for a lot of schools, right? So law isn't just for lawyers, and those of us who work in the free or even in the access to justice space certainly know that legal education is happening in lots of little micro areas, right? So now the problem with that is putting a bunch of these students in front of standard law professors. These are different students. You should probably have different teaching materials. You should probably have a different teaching approach for them. So it's not just a plop and you're done, right? It's complicated. But maybe that is an opportunity for schools. It's certainly, there would be reasons to do it more just for political power within the university, but for tuition dollars that you can attribute to your program. And maybe then opportunity for CALI. We do not very aggressively reach out for undergraduate crim justice programs and paralegal programs. And the price we give them is ridiculously low. It's $250 compared to law schools that pay $8,400, right? We're mostly about law schools. But some small percentage, I'd say like maybe a quarter of our materials might be interesting to undergraduate crim programs. Our free books, even though the whole textbook might not be interesting, the first couple of chapters or pieces and parts that a paralegal program might want to pluck out. And they can do that because Creative Commons, would be interesting for that. Having said that, it's a hard sell for $250, partly because paralegal programs are smaller, they have less discretionary money, they don't sort of understand how we work, we have to do a lot of explaining and things like that. Given that we got, 30 or 40 programs, so we make a little bit of money on that. We do go to their occasional, we do go to one of their national meetups and, give presentations and stuff like that. All right, I'm not getting into the future of CALI yet. So if you're talking about the future of CALI, you have to be willing to think unthinkable thoughts. Little nod to, what's our friend's name at West, who is the researcher there? I couldn't remember, Dan Dabney, that's it. Dan Dabney used to talk about the universe of unthinkable thoughts. And what I mean by that in lessons is that, so let me start with the positive and say they're a success. For 40 years, we've published lessons, and we're up to 1,400 of them. And they get used 500, 600, 700,000 times a year. Some of those the majority of those are students finding them because they were told about them by their law librarians or some faculty member. But a greater percentage of them are getting used by faculty who assign or recommend them. And a small but growing percentage, like down to the 10 or 15%, I don't know, Elmer, correct me if you know the answer, are using Lesson Link, which is a way to use CALI lessons for formative assessment. So the student and the faculty get feedback on how well they're doing in the lesson. So measured success, right? That's literally how CALI got started. I would like to see that number be 2 million or 5 million, or every school, students completing a large majority of them. They are primary teaching materials. Why not, right? Sorry. So and that's the downside way of thinking, is maybe they have lived their life, and we should be thinking about a different model for how we deliver online education. Now, my instant defense is we don't have to start from a clean slate if we already have a model that kind of fits what humans understand how to do, which is to say the presentation of text, the asking of questions, the branching based on the response, the feedback, the analytics on progress through that. And when Marjorie and I talked about developing a system for role-playing or simulated teaching environments, a lot of the features that would be necessary to build out are already extant in CALI Author. So we would probably, or at least in the CALI lesson model, we don't have to invent everything from scratch. But the unthinkable thought is, should we pivot off of this? And let, or what's the word? Let it sit static and go off in another direction. The whole hype around AI makes you think sort of those thoughts a little bit. A to J authors, same sort of situation. Measured success. We're probably, and this is the many qualifications I have to make. We are the biggest player in the self-represented automated documents, court documents space.
You're the smartest people on the short bus.
Yeah, that's right. We're the tallest, smartest people on a short bus, right? And that's to a tune of 1 million runs of that per year, with evidence of very positive feedback from a few of our partners that tell us, we love you, baby, you're doing great stuff. At the same time, our major funder, Legal Services Corporation, said, document automation is boring, stagnant, not innovative anymore. And even though by our own studies that we've done about 20, wait, I have slides for this. Oh, wait, sheepdog or mop? Just look for the tongue, right? All right. Oops, nope, I don't have a slide for that, never mind. So even though by our own studies that we've only completed about 20% of the easy to automate and the low-hanging fruit forms, in other words, there's an 80% upside to this proven technology, the funding's not there to keep us going hard on that, right? So we're out looking for grant money and we're looking for partners. And for something that I thought was like a no-brainer is a brainer, or I guess, or a no decision for a lot of other people. A to J author is also not legal education directly, right? It's access to justice. It is in our mission, and we can use it as a teaching tool in schools. And we've done lots of presentations and worked on projects with schools. But the unthinkable thought is, well, what if we lop that limb off and save the money of poor Jessica and Tobias? Where are you? Oh,
He's running his head.
he's not here, so he doesn't get his head lopped off in public.
Wow.
No, I'm just saying, we have to think unthinkable thoughts for the future of that. And that's one of those unthinkable thoughts. All right, sheepdogs, right. The last, another unthinkable thought is the graying of CALI. So that's me in 2014 and me yesterday. Now, the beard does all the work there, right? If I shaved, I probably would look as young as that picture, 9 years old or something like that. But this is actually a serious point. 5 of my staff are all in their 60s, 4, 5. Elmer, John, Deb, Sam, you're not yet. Yeah, 4 of us. With over 100 years of experience, in the next 5 to 10 to 20 years, hoping that those rejuvenation tablets work, CALI's going to be what's the word? Retiring out its smartest people.
Wow.
Not its smartest people.
Well, you lobbed off the smartest people.
So we're gonna need those. We're gonna need those limbs that we just lopped off to carry the load for the oldsters who are gone. I don't know. This is I know. I got Tom in the room who's got LAI in his back rearview mirror and went through that of handing over to co-executive directors, or is that what your title is?
Co-directors.
Co-directors, yeah. And people, when I talk to the board about this, their first question is, "Oh my God, are you leaving?" And I'm like, "Not yet, not yet. I think I've got a few more years."
In our case, it was a 5-year transition.
Sorry?
It was a 5-year transition at the LII.
There we go. So if it's a 5-year, I should be starting right now if I plan to be on here by 67, right?
Yeah.
Right. And I have been thinking about it for a couple of years, so I've already started. But it's an issue for CALI, and this is the future of CALI, right? All right. Oh, puppy your bagel.
The dachshunds.
Some dachshunds in there, some puppies. Yeah, I can see the puppy. All right. So can't not talk about some of the cool, fun stuff that I've been thinking about forever or recently, and I know I'm really going to get to some of these back burner projects someday. One of them is I still believe that we can use time trial and turn it into a tournament game that would attract students and that it would help them learn and memorize things about case law and about Supreme Court justices and the history of law. All right, I'm going to stop talking about it. I've actually, I started studying some game engine tools and programming. I just never seem to be able to find enough time to put on it. All right, another thing, and it's not a back burner so much as something that we only just are starting to talk about seriously. And Marjorie and I talked about it yesterday. It's the idea of taking, well, I'll just do it this way. It's about a scripting program, some sort of version of CALI Author that essentially allows faculty to create simulations that when the students play, they learn things that are going to be on the next gen bar or learn law practice knowledge, factual investigation, communication, client counseling. They're put into situations like that. And the reason why the faculty member who I've illustrated with Marjorie with the sun on in her mind with the bright idea is because I think they have to be close to what this does in a sort of a no-code like thing rather than something where they pontificate or write a Word document and then shove it off to the developers and then see what they do with it. Right? We need the subject matter experts close to the simulation because it's something that's going to teach or do a better job of doing law practice skills or next-gen bar capability wherever it makes sense that that sort of overlaps. And that's a moving target, even as it is. But I think it's a fascinating project. And it's enabled by some AI stuff, but some bog standard things like CALI, which is text-to-speech, and the example I have here is Synthesia, which is text-to-video, deep fake video sort of stuff. But you can now buy for hundreds of dollars rather than having to hire actors and have cameras and things like that. Okay. So like I said, we've got something that already does a bunch of things, a bunch of the parts of that, the mechanical parts, CALI Author, including branching, including the ability to, where you put the scripts for the language that you want spoken, or the responses or the feedback you want the characters in the simulation to speak or say. You know, and my TLDR on that is law faculty who graduated law school before 2025 are going to have a completely different experience to the students who are going to take the bar in 2026. You know, almost like they're not going to understand the world that they're in, right? And so they can't just be asked, you know, you got to teach a little bit differently because it's a different cohort now. The bar is the changes everything. And so if they're close to a simulation building tool, maybe they'll have a little bit more empathy for what the new model of learning is. And that's stated baldly, that's our goal, a no-code iterative simulation authoring environment with no other details that I could provide than that at this moment, all right? But I've been thinking about that for a long time. All right, small fun stuff. Lessons in podcast. I'm convinced of the power of podcast. And right now we've got prototypes that turn lessons into podcasts, that can turn a quiz into a podcast. Now, of course, it doesn't stop and wait for you to answer. It just pauses or plays some Jeopardy music, and then you think of the answer, and then it tells you the answer. You know, so it's sort of like learning while you're on the treadmill, or learning while you're walking the dog, or learning while you're driving, sort of things. Case books as podcasts, maybe case books that have quizzes embedded them as podcasts, or the penultimate thing here is I want to learn about this topic, and it assembles the pieces, generates the MP3, and off you go in 2 seconds. All right, sort of instantly customizable learning content for you, the student's situation, or for the faculty who wants a particular focus on something because they are seeing in their formative assessment that the students are falling behind on something. That's the concept. All right. CALI Awards. When I go out and run into other lawyers, and that happens a lot because my wife is a lawyer and she goes to bar events and things, and they go, oh, this is my husband, John. He's the executive director of CALI. And they're like, oh, yeah, I got a CALI Award. And I'm like, well, that's great. Congratulations. I said, did you ever run a CALI lesson? And he's like, what's that? No, it's not quite that bad. It's not quite that bad. So we have like 23 years of awards out there from 100 and so schools. And we've long had this simple idea that we should go back to those people who got awards and ask them a stupid question. How'd you do that? And then get them to tell us in either a 3-minute video or some sort of structured thing, and then feed that back to the schools, because that's a knowledge management system. Yeah, well, I took this professor. I mean, I don't know how much insider information to provide, but I'm sure they've got interesting stories to tell. And the reason why I throw this tweet up there is I ran across this last year. This is a student. I'm proud 2-time recipient of the CALI Award, Excellence for the Future Award, recognizing the best grade in legal writing while I was at Southern U. It's like, good for you, Deidre. Turns out she's running for a judgeship. And this was a tweet about her CALI Award, which I thought was awesome. I don't know if she won. I should look that up. Oh, Shibu Inu or Burt Marshmallow? These are hard. I don't know. You can look for the eyes, but some of the crispy parts of the Burt Marshmallow look like eyes, don't they? All right. So last but not least, and then we're going to get into some interaction and some talk. Good. I've only been talking for a half hour. AI. Am I too old for this? No, I'm not too old for this. But there's a reason why I asked that question in that way. And it's that. when the ChatGPT stuff started to come out and all the hype, I mean, my first reaction was, do I have to like pay attention to this crap? You know, and I didn't understand why. I mean, there was a time when that would have happened, I'd be like, this is awesome. I'm gonna have some fun, and we're all gonna do cool stuff, and the possibilities are endless. I would have been on the hype train. I would have been driving the hype train, and I didn't even want to hitch my caboose to it, you know, at first, you know. And I realized that it's not just me and my age that brought that thought on. It's change fatigue, and all of society. I blame everybody. I blame us all. We're all feeling a little bit of change fatigue going on, a little bit at least. Not except for Elmer, fortunately. That's why you get the big bucks, dude.
Well, the only thing I know is everything always changes. So,
I just want things to stay a little bit the same for a little while,
Just for a moment.
and then I want to take a nap. But AI has all sorts of possibilities for us. I found this article just this week. This is a Fortune article, but they interviewed a guy who builds dungeons. He's a dungeon master in D&D. And part of the tedious part of doing dungeons is writing up backstories or character sheets or something like that. And he just jumps into ChatGPT and it gives him like a good starting point for that. And you know, there's no worry about it being inaccurate or being a hallucination. He wants it to make shit up. so it works for him. And I'm like, wow, well maybe the AI could be like a first drafter for hypotheticals or for situations in those role-playing simulations. They don't have to be hyper accurate. They're going to be edited and looked over by faculty who are the authors. You know, that could be really powerful. So AI, you know, it's not. I don't want to think about AI as just that ChatGPT interface. Of course I don't. Nobody does. But I want to see it as where are its strengths in the things that we can't do now or we never thought we could do, or things that we do but it's hard to do, like that scripting of simulations and stuff like that. Second place, we did a study, I think I mentioned it, in 2020, Alexandra Jones?
Yes.
Yeah, got her name right. It's a student who basically went and visited all or as many of the court and legal aid websites as she could find in all 50 states, looking for whether 25 of the simplest or the most used self-represented litigant forms had been automated or not. So do they have the form? Is it just a PDF? Is it a fillable PDF? Is it DocAssemble? Is it Hot Docs? Is it A to J Author? And that's what the legend means. And the short answer is only about 20% of those forms have been automated. So there's a lot of room for those other 80%. And maybe AI, and I use that broadly, can help us automate the automation. All right? Quentin Steenhouse, I also credit him at Suffolk with some of this idea. He did a little bit of a scraping project for forms from courts and was working on an automation project into DocAssemble because that's his gig. But A to J Author is a highly structured XML format. And so my thought was it wouldn't be that hard to obtain or scrape or find, although we would want to borrow from the talents that we know already exist from LAI and Court Listener and Justia on scrapers. But we're looking for court forms and whatever metadata we can get out of them. And then we want to turn them into a first draft of an A to J Author guided interview. Now, there's a lot of heuristics and a lot of subject matter expertise that goes into rearranging those questions so that it's best for a self-represented litigant. You know, so we're not going to get too far, even with all that work that I just described is successful. But like I said, it's an interesting project that would be a force amplifier if we could like easily automate the other 80% of forms. Maybe 4,000 or 5,000 of those. But we would also have to do the hard work after that of finding the subject matter experts who will act as the suable attorney on record of having created the guidance, not the advice for those forms. All right. Chihuahua or blueberry muffin? This one's hard because the eyes look like blueberries, right? So you can't just look for the eyes.
They're always in the same places every time. It's always, muffin dog.
Oh, you hacked the
Somebody
system.
noticed the pattern.
I figured it.
Are you an AI?
Prove it by pointing out which one's the dog, which one's the muffin.
Prove it by hallucinating.
It's not as random as you think, right?
I know.
Couldn't tell, but I realized. Whatever.
All right. We have a very small project called the Syllabus Commons. All I do is every so often ask for people to send me their syllabus. If they're teaching a course about technology in law school or something like that, gathered up 70 of those. I haven't updated it recently because I haven't done a call out recently. Is Dennis in your room? Dennis Kennedy? Hey, there he is. He's been my
I owe you a couple of things. I'm at Michigan State. I gotta tell you, things got slowed down after the mass shooting at Michigan State this past semester. So I owe you those and I'll get you those.
No rush, cool. But you're one of my best contributors and promoters. Thank you so much for everything you've done for that. But I've gotten lots and lots of mention and comments and emails about people saying this is great. You know? And of course, as soon as you think of if something's like a little bit successful, do more of it, right? So why don't we go out and ask all the faculty in all the classes for their syllabi? There's no deans in the room because when I asked that at the board meeting, the deans went, ha! And the reason why they did that is I can't even get the syllabus for my own faculty. But one idea is, what if a student says, well, here's my syllabus for my course. And it's a detailed document of what the readings are and what subjects they're about to study. And they could hand it to CALI, and Elmer's amazing AI engine would then read that syllabus and then go CALI lesson podcast, chapter in a free book, so on and so forth. A list of suggested readings or links for them to do. And why not, why just CALI stuff? Why not look at the whole free law universe of things that might be interesting to look at while you're studying your normal stuff? Now, there's downsides to that, right? Students already have too much to read or too much work to do, but it's a marketplace and we need to be on the shelf to be considered for, at least let students decide. Give them the agency. The flip side of that is faculty saying, here's my syllabus, build a course out of all CALI materials with that. And it will say, well, use this book and this chapter and this lesson and this podcast, and it will break it down into 40 to 80 minute student seat time chunks, and it becomes a Word doc that they can then use as a starting point for building an entirely online course.
So,
Dennis.
as I start to think about it, as people have gotten back to me, asking me about this syllabi I've put into there, loosely, but this generation is all we want personalization, right?
Yep.
So we have this core of syllabi, and what if I could go in and start to say, here are things I want to learn. Can I kind of create this personal course, this independent
Personal course of study, personal syllabus.
It has, like, here's the readings, here are those sorts of things. And it's sort of like a middle step saying, there's a next step would then be to say personalized CALI lessons that I bundle with the things that I want to learn. So it's an intermediate step. But there are things in there where you go like, well, I have a course and it's sort of like this, and I like to grab these things, and maybe we can kind of create a syllabus or the first draft of a syllabus on the fly.
Yep.
Is the thought.
Exactly. So we all do this stuff by ourselves, but we make our brains do the work. I'm going to decide to read this. I'm going to click around. I'm going to decide to read this. It's browsing. It's web browsing. I'm thinking of something that creates something that's a little more boxed, a little more standardized. And the ultimate of that is then you get a badge for completing the items in it. Credential. At first, a credential that means nothing, but something that we iterate on, and it becomes a credential that people tweet about when they're running for their judgeship.
Yeah, my credentialing is huge in higher ed right now, and so I would say,
Micro-credential,
if I
exactly.
did this self-study and got a SALI micro-credential I could put on my LinkedIn profile as a student, I think that would help me in the job market.
All right. So I'm wrapping it up here, and then we're gonna have some discussion. So what am I missing? What about, what should CALI be doing? What shouldn't CALI be doing? What's going on in your space that's interesting about the future of legal education and technology? And maybe it's not, doesn't have anything to do with CALI. It just so happens that that's where I'm at. Tom?
I want to go back to something you were saying at the beginning about finding new audiences for new lessons. And I think that the key to thinking that through is to break down the standard categorizations that law schools use in describing courses. I'll give you a pre-built example, right? There are any number of law schools now that have elder law clinics. That's a very cross-category thing, right? I mean, it embraces everything from tax law to Medicare, Medicaid stuff, Social Security, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And if you think that through, you realize that there's a huge expanded audience beyond lawyers for that. Social
Massive.
workers.
Anybody with an elder parent or
I mean, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I just think that if that process were taken further into other categories, you'd get a lot of good ideas out of it.
Cool.
You know, I mean, the rest of the world does not think in terms of torts. It really doesn't.
No, besides watching Fox News, they don't think about constitutional law either.
And, you know, there's environmental law, which just touches every level of government, including some things that aren't really governmental, like water districts and that kind of thing.
Yep, people's law. I agree. That's the, I'll push back on you though. How do you make money off of something like that? Because, I mean, I agree that it would be great to work on those things, but I don't have the cash to pay people to do those things. Do you sell it as a subscription or
I was going to say,
sell access to
the
it?
place my brain goes immediately is to a sort of low-cost subscription model.
Huh? Like an app, maybe.
Yeah.
App. All right. What else? So did any? I probably should have stopped at some of those things and said, "What do you think about this? What do you think about this? What do you think about this?" Oh, that's my last slide. Second to last slide. Well, let me back up. No, I'll back up just to there. Now. So do you all see the same legal education turmoil that I'm talking about? I mean, are your deans and associate deans and library directors going, I don't even know how to think about the future, right? And what are you doing about that? Or nothing? Barb?
So the fastest growing market of law schools is not the JD. It is in these, by wide margin. There are more law schools growing enrollment in Masters of Legal Studies programs, which are designed for their executive education, like an executive MBA.
Mm-hmm.
They're not designed for lawyers, so people are going to be lawyers, and that's where the legal profession is going to have to go to. It's going to have to go to a paraprofessional model. Because the demands for
Access to
meeting
justice.
legal services are not, we don't have the supply to meet that demand. CALI has plenty to contribute to that space. Those law schools are not launching those programs solely to be out of a service mindset. That this is an area in which there is a need for legal education in the marketplace, and we want to serve That's part of the mindset.
Sure.
But the other part is there's money to be made. A 30 credit hour master's that you can use with, a lot of schools are building these on excess capacity models. I've got a classroom that,
Let's unpack that a little bit. Excess capacity of their instructors?
classrooms.
Of the
I have
faculty?
a classroom like this, my law school has shrunk by 20%. That means there are 20% of the seats in this room that are now available
Ah.
that I can sell to non-law students, master's students, to sit in and get the value of legal education. That's one model.
Sit in or,
Or Zoom in, yeah,
all right?
that's one model. The other model is, no, it's a different audience, different education, and you have to have a different program. The advantage of the access capacity model is you don't have to put a whole lot of resources into it. Disadvantage is it's not really very effective master's education, right? I mean,
It
it's,
doesn't really do what you say it's doing.
no. But that's one model. Now, the other model, though, this executive model that is primarily online, that's what we're launching at UMKC, assuming I convince the curators in a week's time here that we can do this.
Mhm.
And we're just in the middle of the pack. I mean, this is pretty much, a lot of law schools are doing this.
Mhm.
The challenge is, who teaches these things? If you're not using an excess capacity model, then you have to build a faculty. And if the idea of doing this is in part in order to bring more revenue into the law school to support the JD program, which is what the ABA requires in their acquiescences, is that these programs don't interfere with your JD program. Well, then you need to find some low-cost, high-quality, effective teaching tools, resources.
Uh-huh.
And whether that's teachers or materials or courses.
It's all, yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
CALI
and
is,
it might exist at your undergraduate institution, given the shrinkage. I mean, you've got a whole lot of trained faculty on your campus who are having these kind of problems themselves.
right.
Trial advocacy programs have run on adjuncts for years.
And that's how most people are running these MLS programs. But adjuncts get, I mean, this year was the first year the ALS ever had a program for adjuncts.
Good Lord, really?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's ALS, right up with the times.
Yeah, but nonetheless, I mean, that's both a recognition of the increasing importance of adjuncts, but also it's kind of like, duh, really? Really?
Yeah. Huh.
Yeah. So I mean, I think that there's a big market opportunity in legal education for CALI to help diversify the portfolio of law schools by just kind of recognizing where is the excess capacity in our lessons, where is the excess capacity in our books that people can use, you know, where are possibilities. So that's one. That's one place. Well, I'll shut up. That's enough.
All right, no, that's really good intel on that.
More generally, it seems, combining a couple of things that are floating around, it sounds like there's probably a big need for adjuncts in general that bring a lot of expertise to a subject but don't necessarily have the teaching experience or the time to, say, research and build a syllabus to the quality that matches what's actually in their head. And it sounds like some of the things you were talking about earlier that you want to do, it seems like there's a marriage there where you really potentially could be marketing specifically to adjunct faculty as, here are things that will make you more effective in the classroom. You bring your expertise, we'll provide everything else.
Sure.
Whether it's online or whether it's in class or whatever.
First place I'd look
Except
for
we
that is
can't-
with retired alumni.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's fine. It'd be useful if a law school was hiring the adjuncts to do this program, acknowledge the existence of CALI in the first place, in, you know, sort of bringing folks on board and let them know it's there. I mean, it's hard for us, it's difficult for us to get to faculty, just sort of generally.
I know that's true where I work.
And
so.
yeah, I mean, it's true every, you know, it's a problem. So yes, the new faculty, even new regular, you know, new full-time tenure track faculty could benefit from using CALI resources. if only they knew about them, right? And that's kind of the biggest challenge for us. And that's, I think, one of our real weak spots is that we don't have the kind of faculty outreach that we need to have. And so we're sort of left like, just kind of like watching that all sort of cycle in and out as people notice and don't notice and forget and, you know, and all that sort of stuff. And that's a big problem. And if we had more, you know, if we were more effective in faculty outreach, I think, you know, we'd be in a better position to market ourselves to these new programs, which do offer a great opportunity for us, and certainly to partner with schools. But, you know, we need a foot in the door somewhere on some of this.
I don't think we're the only ones that have trouble reaching faculty.
No, we're not.
Talk to the
It's
law
not.
librarians. And
No, it's not.
at their own institutions,
Well, I mean,
they
a
struggle.
joke today, it might talk about the faculty at, you know, my institution, and, you know, LAI's been around 30 years, and everybody in this room knows who Tom Bruce is, but I'm not sure that's true of our own tenured faculty.
Marge?
You gotta,
Oh, Dennis?
Yeah, having been an adjunct over many years, do people realize how little adjuncts get paid? So, I can tell you that if CALI told me that for one of my classes, I could put it up on the CALI site and do a revenue share, you wouldn't have to guarantee me very much money at all for it to be economically more useful to me. And the benefit I get from the adjunct teaching I can do is the brand of the law school that I'm associated with on an adjunct teaching basis. So
I love hearing
and I'm
about
saying,
business models.
So
Yep.
a lot of adjuncts feel, I mean, I had union people come to my apartment door from University of Michigan over the weekend because adjuncts and you know the lecturers get paid so little they're unionizing. So I think that there's all this talent in adjuncts, and the administration will tell you that we love you, you help the school so much, and you do it because you love it, not because you get paid. And that goes so far. So you have, and this is thinking the unthinkable here, but so you have this group of adjuncts who are tremendously valuable. They teach things that nobody else can in law schools. And they're unhappy. They're certainly not satisfied.
We can use that anchor.
Are they, can you give them a new place to go where you at least give them income replacement and give them some kind of branding and a bigger audience? And then are you at CALI willing to go into competition with the law schools for that talent and to take some of that revenue away from law schools?
That's unthinkable.
Yeah. Could you do something though where you had the CALI adjunct professors,
Uh-huh.
right? And so, sign up Dennis, right?
Mhm.
And then you basically take his lectures and give them out to a bunch of different law schools.
Oh, boy,
At
this
the
is
same
something like iFlip or Kodak or something.
Yeah, because, you know, if you're doing a lot of stuff online anyways, as half of all law schools tend to be these days, all of a sudden Dennis's stuff could be at Michigan, Michigan State, you know, Illinois, Ohio, well, not Ohio State, but, you know, other places. And,
It's the Ohio
I was just
State.
gonna say.
the Ohio State.
They call it that school from the
Yeah.
in the south.
Toledo, okay. But, you know, and then you could get the best adjunct professors doing the best stuff, and you could take it to all these different schools, and then you could load it up maybe with some TAs, basic stuff, you know, some extra support, I mean, obviously, if you're doing a lot of schools. But do it that way, and that way they get better adjunct professors. You guys control who it is by sort of making decisions. They work with your software, which you can distribute out to different schools. And the schools will save money. I mean, there'll be less adjunct professors, but fine, there's a lot of adjunct professors probably should be teaching anyways. Sorry, it's a market. Well, you get the good ones, and the good ones are seen more, and that's scalable, especially when things are online, like the Arizona State version of adjunct professors.
I love hearing about business models, so I'm not saying, and there's no bad ideas in this session.
Yeah, and I would say to follow up on that, so I have a friend Marty Schwimmer, who writes this blog called the Trademark Blog. He's done it for a long time. It's really well known, as good as anybody in trademark law. And he wants to teach a class in sort of brand protection and new approaches to the whole trademark area. Phenomenally useful class. He's brilliant. If I want to get him to Michigan State, can't do it because the ABA won't allow online classes, and there's no way that they're going to pay for him to come from New York to Lansing, right? So, but if you went to your model of this executive MBA kind of model, where you say, here's a weekend thing, and you get people like Marty and stuff like that, and we're opening it to everybody, and it's, let's say, $15,000, $20,000, whatever those things run these days, then from my days back at MasterCard, I would say, like, our whole IP department is likely to go to that. All these other people at firms would like to go to that, and they will do it because they're not personally paying for it. And then you have this potential revenue stream, and then you, as CALI, are jumping into that because the law schools are too slow to figure out what to do. And you're sort of being, and then the CALI brand becomes the identifier for this. So again, I'm thinking aloud and thinking unthinkable thoughts.
If you want to speak the unspeakable, you're getting dangerously close, not just to legal education, but to continuing legal education.
Yes.
All right, let's change the subject.
You know, with the entire department of legal department of MasterCard coming to a weekend, right? That's CLE.
But that's the
There are
biggest
a lot of
competitor for the
players.
JD right now
Yeah.
too, or for higher education in general,
The CA.
right? People don't believe in degrees anymore. They believe in
Micro-credentials.
micro-credentials. And you know, in 20 years, is anybody going to care whether you have a degree? They're going to care about the
Just the
skills that you can, you know, this competency model that we're moving to slowly, you know, industry is moving toward the competency model very rapidly. And so industry is where law schools ought to be worried about. I mean, we've got a monopoly for now, but not for long. I mean, it ain't gonna, it's already breaking down so
Well,
fast.
people are carving away from it, so like, in, you know, data privacy area, like, people don't really consider that law. It's sort of this compliance, a lot of people who aren't lawyers who do data privacy stuff.
Yeah.
They'd be happy to take the classes. It's not a requirement, I don't believe, to get the data privacy certifications that you have a law degree. So, and those certifications carry a huge, tremendous amount of weight in that area, so. There are other models out there. It's just, I see higher ed, shrinking budgets, unwillingness to try new things, and as you say, an aging, I'll say it this way, which I can say, well, graying is a good way to do it. Graying of faculty, that it's ripe for change, but it's ripe for change from the outside, not the inside.
How Clayton Christensen, disruptive innovation.
It's different than disruptive innovation. I think it's a business model transformation. And I don't think the law schools are going to be able to step up to that. And so other providers have the opportunity here.
Well, so, and I appreciate the unthinkable thoughts. The CALI mission is to help law schools think those unthinkable thoughts. And so rather than compete with them, I'd want to bring them along with this by either through demonstration or with tooling or with pilots and examples.
All of this, though, is stuff that's going to face an enormous amount of faculty resistance.
Yes.
So good luck.
Exactly, yeah.
And yet we're still here.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you MKC on the sort of executive thing, what is the reaction of tenured faculty? Are they fighting it, and then what is their objection? Or they just don't care because it doesn't affect them?
No, we have, 5 faculty who said, oh, that sounds interesting, I'd like to play with that, but we already do so much interdisciplinary stuff. We have so many of our faculty who have, if you teach education law, you got people from the, higher ed in your educational law class. My family and violence class, I've got social workers in it. We already do so much that, so we're not quite as afraid of that. And then the rest are like, just don't ask me to do it. Hold harmless. It's like all change management, just hold harmless the outliers, and and go where people are at on the innovation, which is, I think, what CALI ought to do. I think we ought to look at the learning goals that are, we've always pushed the envelope. That's what CALI has always been, is let's get out there so that in 10 years' time, people are saying, oh, we ought to do that. And we'll say, yeah, we've been doing it for 10 years, right? And so we ought to be thinking, where's that envelope that we can help push? And I think this is it. I think it's micro-credentialing, I think it's serving industry, I think it's thinking more broadly about who our students are that law schools have to serve.
Yeah, I mean, I would say on the business side, I'd say the missing piece in this room, right, and what needs to be part of the conversation is the customer. Identifying the customers, getting the customer's point of view, so you're testing that. So we're hearing, we're seeing what we think students want, seeing what we think our alumni want in terms of continuing education. They don't want the CLE bar stuff. They want real stuff where they get to go back to their professors and learn things. And to say, you know, if we understand what those customers want, that can drive our decisions, because otherwise we're sort of hypothesizing, whether it's a loaf of bread or a corgi, whatever it's called.
It's my last one and my favorite one, bread or corgi, Heine. You know, with that, that's the future. So let me reiterate that if you've got ideas, suggestions, compliments, complaints after this, don't hesitate. Drop me a note. Love to talk about it. And thank you for coming to this conference.
Sorry, John, one
Michael.
question. You know, we just had the professional identity formation conference that Deb and Sarah went to. Is there anything out of that is new or perhaps useful for CALI?
I don't know. I mean, I've had conversations with both of them about it, but I didn't include any particular product that that we could identify, other than the idea of some sort of learning materials that cover that topic. So I don't know what's the conversation about that continues, I guess.
Well, I think, is there like a Slack channel or something you guys discuss this on? Because I think you should take overall we take the ideas, we look at what the revenue could be, we look at the cost, look at we gotta do some basic like business planning.
Yeah.
First, but you gotta list it out, because some of them might have bigger opportunity, but but it seems to me, just I know it's a random discussion, but it seems like a random discussion. So if we could systematically go through it and then run it by people, and then walk through it, just like doing any other investment type of thing.
I agree.
and
It's
then
sometimes it's a little hard to talk to law schools about their business planning, because they think that they have to be secret about it so that other people don't copy them, or that they have competitors who will steal the ideas from them. I know when we were doing the codec or the distance learning stuff, schools didn't want to cooperate around sharing courses too much, because that was taking away, they viewed that as potentially taking away revenue from themselves. They wanted to use their excess capacity, not buy excess capacity from others. I'm not saying no, I'm just saying that it's a maelstrom.
I think it's because
turmoil.
their teachers coming up with others. If you create the teachers and you lease it out to them, I think it changes it slightly. But anyways, I think the business model wise, if we could just put numbers on it,
I agree.
The 5-10 ideas.
This is about business model construction as much as about all the other gory details about that. There has to be a way that revenue is flowing to sustain it. Otherwise, it's just
And then you can try little things. If it goes down, you just kill it quick. I mean, that's like everything.
Very willing to lob staff members off, so.
You're gonna pay for that one for a long
How
time.
much from this head?
Listen, I got an HR guy. He plays football. He's a mean one. Yeah, but
I mean, we could.
But no, I don't.
run
I
up
mean,
a-
you
we
just
could
got to
run up a
allocate where
Slack.
people work.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, we don't have one, but it's easy enough to just create.
But I can.
Sure. And I mean,
I don't think you have to fire people, but you move them to different things.
I agree.
Thanks, Tim.
Tom, did you have a last thought?
No, not really. I mean, there's an awful lot of this stuff about competition that I don't quite interpret in the same way that Tim did. I mean, I remember the early years of distance learning in legal education, and the thought that you heard from everybody was, well, Arthur Miller's gonna be teaching every law school course in the country, and it has to do more with an insult to faculty than it does with actual competition.
Barbari's done the most in consolidating star lecturers into resellable and scalable. You know, for $4,000, you get their 12 star lecturers. But the next gen bar is going to change a lot of that. It's an opportunity for the whole marketplace to get a little
And
bit
even
disrupted,
without
maybe.
next gen bar, there are an increasing number of competitors in that bar prep space. There's something about what the current folks are doing that is causing other people to feel there's an opportunity.
Opportunities there. Themis, Helix.
Yeah, I think part of it is
Yeah.
that Barbari's star lineup is aging out.
That may be
And
part of it.
then,
Deep
Well,
fakes.
And they're also just overpriced,
Yeah.
overpriced, so.
and people complain.
Yeah,
a lot.
and Helix is nonprofit project from
Right.
Access Lex.
Yeah,
They got into,
is it really nonprofit?
well,
Yeah, well, they are a nonprofit, good point.
Yes.
But they need a revenue stream.
sure. But I mean, they got into bar prep to, in part, they say, and I take them at their word,
Sure.
to bring the market costs down.
Yep.
Because that's part of their mission, is to increase accessibility.
Yep.
So.
Great, thank you very much. Appreciate your feedback.